You know, we all take it for granted now, but it wasn't that long ago when the internet was a mysterious new phenomenon.
For years, they've been saying these things would change the world. Now, maybe it's coming true because of internet.
And along with all that excitement, well, there was a new player in our world. That player was called the hacker. In the year 2000, a hacker made history when big-time websites like CNN, Yahoo, Amazon, eBay, they all ground to a halt. Just a harmless prank, right? Well, think again. Reports at the time claimed it cost the companies over $1 billion, and panic set in.
Every day this week, major websites have been outmaneuvered and outmuscled by someone who wanted to take them down.
On Wall Street, the cyber attacks helped drive down the prices of the target companies.
In the days after the web attacks, President Bill Clinton held a special cybersecurity summit at the White House.
I think it was an alarm. I don't think it was Pearl Harbor.
The FBI, the RCMP, they were all on the case, and in the end, the Mounties got their guy.
Investigators of Montreal arrested Mafiaboy and conducted a search of his residence.
Turned out to be this guy, a 15-year-old kid from Montreal who called himself Mafiaboy. Mafiaboy faced jail time, but he pleaded guilty to charges of criminal mischief, got 8 months in a youth detention center, plus a year's probation. Well, Mafiaboy actually has a real name, and that's Michael Calce. He has never told his story, how he did it, and why he did it. He's turned down every interview request since his arrest until now. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Calce. Welcome to the program, Michael. Thanks for that. Most kids, when they hear the principal call their name over the announcements, get a pit in their stomach.
Yeah.
What does a 15-year-old do when Bill Clinton convenes some cyber summit because of something he did?
Well, it's a lot. You don't know how to deal with the whole situation at first, and when you hear that Bill Clinton is convening a summit based on you, you don't know what to believe at that point.
All right, so for people who don't know, I mean, so you were 15, you're in some hacker chat rooms, and you say, hey, look what I'm going to do. How to tell people the story?
Well, what I'm known for basically is the e-commerce attacks that I did in the year 1999, where I basically brought e-commerce to a halt. And, you know, I took out some of the biggest companies in the world, then and now. So this was kind of, a lot of people had stocks invested, and this is during the e-commerce boom. And people were starting to feel the insecurity that, you know, is our money safe? Are our companies safe? Is our online shopping safe? So it brought a lot of questions out, and I felt people were very nervous about that.
So you decided to bring them down?
I brought them down.
Why?
Well, originally I was part of a hacker network on a chat, and we were kind of engaged in a huge war, and you know, nobody knew about this society unless you were a part of it.
What kind of war? Like Bloods and Crips kind of war, or?
I mean, not exactly. We're not firing off pistols or something, but we're using packets as if they were pistols.
Right.
And packets is basically sending transmission from one computer to another. And
It was the war the hackers versus each other, or the hackers versus the market? What were the sides?
It's normally hackers versus hackers, but yes, I mean, collateral damage, the public companies are going to be, you know, affected by it. But mainly I was targeting the hackers, you know, part of that community, because it was divided in gangs, just like you said, Crips and Bloods. Everybody was divided in their own sections, and this led to a lot of wars.
And so it was more, so were you just showing off to go, look what I can do?
You know, I was testing it, and for me, hacking was an exploring. It was an adventure to me. I wanted to see how far I could go.
I mean, how old were you when you got in the computer for the first time?
6 years old.
And how long before you started to realize you knew what you were doing on the internet?
I'd say 11 years old, I was pretty familiar exactly what I was doing.
And so how does somebody go, you know, like, because Ferris Bueller, right? You could have gone and just changed your grades. Who decides?
I should have done that.
Yeah.
I mean,
who decides to go, I need an A to, I think I'm going to bring down CNN?
Well, at the time, these companies were the most popular on the internet, and they yielded a lot of traffic. So if you really want to run a test and see how effective it is, you have to pick some of the big companies.
All right. So what happened? So you sent the packet off, you wanted to test it on a big company, and then you went to school?
Well, Yahoo, the initial attack, Yahoo, I launched while I wasn't even at home. I was at school while the attack went off.
So you just said, like, you time delayed it.
Yeah, you could set up a cron tab, which is basically a timer that will, you know...
You're a very crafty kid, Mafiaboy.
So are you, George.
I wouldn't know how to do that. So then you do that. So you're at school, and did you think it was going to work?
At first, not at all. I mean, Yahoo was known to be an e-commerce giant, so they dealt with, you know, so much traffic. They had very intense networks. I did some research on the topology of the network, and they had very serious routers, a lot of backup. I didn't think it was going to work at all.
How'd you find out it worked?
When I got back and, you know, I saw some chatter on the net, there was a lot of buzz going around on the chat that I was a part of, and people were, Yahoo went down, Yahoo went down. You know, I was like, uh-oh, we got a problem here.
So how do you tell your dad? How do you, like, you know, Dad, I broke the car window. How do you tell, Dad, I brought down Yahoo and CNN and everybody else?
It wasn't an easy moment, and it's not exactly ordinary for a 15-year-old kid to be bringing this up with his father, obviously, but he has two rules. You don't play with his cigars, and you don't bother him while he's eating.
Okay.
So I decided to break one of those because on a Sunday he was alone at home and I wanted to confront him one-on-one. You know, I didn't want people around. I wanted to basically tell him that I was the one who was behind it. And he was sitting at the kitchen table eating a panini, you know, which is an Italian sandwich.
Homemade panini? Like,
homemade.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I wish you were there. We could have shared it, you know?
No. I will not be there when you tell your dad that stuff. You're on your own. Okay, so he's eating and then?
He's eating it and, you know, I'm trying to think in my head, how do I bring this up to him, you know? So I decided to just take the straight up approach and be like, I got to talk to you about something. And, you know, he's there chewing his food and, like, barely paying attention to me.
Were you just freaking out inside?
A part of me was. I'm a pretty calm person, naturally. And I still had to keep, my nerves were starting to tingle a bit, you know, because I'm about to break this news to my father. And, you know, I don't know how he's going to react with the whole situation. So there he is eating his panini, and I bring it up and I'm like, you know, I got something I got to talk to you about. And he's like, yeah, what is it? You know, and I'm like, you know, those attacks that are circulating in the media right now, I hate to break it to you, but I'm the one behind it. And he just, you know, took a step back a bit and focused back on his panini. Like I didn't even, like I could have told him I want, you know, take me to basketball practice. And, you know, he's like, listen, we got to prepare and we got to go see an attorney. You got to be ready for what's about to come, which was pretty cool the way he dealt with it.
So what happens when the cops come to get you? Because eventually they got you.
Yeah, they came for me. It took about 3 months after the initial attacks. And the whole surprising thing is that I wasn't even at home when they came for the bust.
Where were you?
I was at a friend's house watching Goodfellas. You know, so who knew?
Thinking if I got into that kind of crime, I'd be okay right now, right?
Look, I mean, when you're watching Goodfellas, you think you're not in such a bad situation anymore, right?
And so then what happened? So you're watching Goodfellas, they go to your house?
Yeah, well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm watching the movie. I'm at my friend's house. It's Friday night. You know, I'm enjoying myself, and all of a sudden I get a phone call. And I'm thinking, you know, is this an ex-girlfriend? Who could this be, you know? And then I look at the phone, and I see the caller ID, and it's my house calling. This is when I started to feel a bit uneasy, and I answer the phone. I'm like, hello? And it's my father. And he's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm where I told you I'd be. I'm at my friend's house. He's like, they're here. And I'm just like, in the tone of his voice, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And this is what he meant by to prepare, you know? Yeah. And he's like, the RCMP is here. They're here with the FBI. There's people all over the house, and they're looking for you.
Did you get on your bike and ride home? What do you do?
Honestly, I wouldn't even, it was so late at night, I wouldn't have even found my way home. But no, they actually requested that I go to the corner of my friend's street and wait for them to come arrest me.
Do you think you did it? I mean, I know it's years later. You were 15 years old, and that's why I'm not busting you too much, because you were a kid at the time, right? But do you feel like you did something wrong?
Absolutely. Listen, I regret what I did, you know, but a lot of people seem to forget the fact that I was 15 years old. You know, you're a misguided kid, and I mean, I'm not trying to say, you know, that's the only reason, like, oh, I was 15, like, but I personally feel bad about what I did. And I'm trying to look at ways now how to better the situation and better the internet and help people rather than cause damage.
So what happens when, tell me about your hard drive.
This is a funny story. Everybody seems to like this story about the hard drive.
It's a great story.
I got wind, you know, this is when I started to realize that it's becoming publicized. And A hard drive is basically like the core information and basically the key piece of evidence for them. So I went into my garage and I hammered it to bits and I basically doused it in liquid and I ended up driving to a local Il-Bazar bridge and I threw it over the bridge.
Did you wrap it in magnets too?
Yeah, magnets, doused in liquids, hammered to death.
You know, it's a huge event. Obviously, I mean, you got arrested, you did your time, you went away, you did your bit, but you could have just gone away, lived your life. Nobody would have known Michael Calce was Mafiaboy. Why tell your story in a book?
Well, this is exactly like, because, you know, I had to gain a new perspective on my crime, and I realized what I did was wrong, and I feel bad about it, and I think that I can help people with it by sharing my experiences. You know, hopefully there's not going to be a Mafiaboy 2.0. Or else somebody else's father is going to have to deal with the same thing that mine did.
It's like, did your friends know this was going on when you were doing this? Because from all reports, you didn't leave, like, you stayed in the basement working on the computer. You had a life. You were doing things.
Yeah, no, I was pretty good at balancing it out. Obviously, computers started to take over a bit, but no, I had girlfriends. I played basketball, all kinds of sports, but you know, I had to balance it out, and nobody really knew. That's why all my friends found out, like, when it wasn't a secret anymore. I mean, obviously, they couldn't release my name for juvenile reasons, but when my friends found out, they're like, you know, when the hell did you have time to do that?
Thanks for coming in, man. It's really good to see you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate
Michael
it.
Calce is his name. Here's the book. It's called Mafiaboy: How I Cracked the Internet and Why It's Still Broken. You know, it's such a fascinating story. I'm sure you want to know more about it. Michael is also the subject of a documentary called Web Warriors, and it'll be on CBC November the 20th at 9 p.m. on DocZone, or you can find it on the website. All right, limber up, babies. The news is next.